Continuing with our reading of Dallas Pimiento, Book 3, Bronchodilator, starting with a piece called Tasty Passenger. It was determined the only way to accurately count the number of hairs in Questadle's mustache would be to pluck them out one by one. Won't that cause him immense pain? Baldwin Wilkes, who always had to imagine the other person's feelings, questioned. Not if he's dead, Pimiento replied. He rambled through a drawer full of knives and stabbing weapons until he found a big pair of dressmaker's scissors, which he held aloft. Not if he's dead, he repeated with all the dramatic power he had learned in his 10 years of amateur theater. He should have snapped the scissors open and shut a few times, Ray criticized from his seat at the back of the theater. Lack of insight, his friend Harper concurred. The problem with such an attack upon Questadle, it was ultimately decided by persons whose authority on such matters Pimiento respected, was that the attendant violence and loss of blood might disturb the mustache hairs to be enumerated and thereby give a spurious reading. You want as accurate a quantification as possible, explained Pimiento's mother. Very well, Pimiento sighed. We very gently poison him. Very gently, Baldwin Wilkes emphasized. I know that, for instance, cyanide is quite painful. Use beryllium, Pimiento's father advised as he put on his running shoes. Put it in his scrambled eggs. He won't taste it, and he won't feel it. He'll just drop dead like an old man on the side of the road. And so the plan was formulated. Baldwin Wilkes would get a job at the bookstore at the mall and save his money until they had enough to buy the precious beryllium. Pimiento would concentrate on learning to make the most delicious scrambled eggs in the world. Oh, what a happy and satisfying day it will be when we know the answer, Pimiento rhapsodized to his girlfriend Amy. What is so special about this man's mustache? The ignorant woman asked. Oh, you've got to see it, Pimiento enthused. The boy who could smell botulism. A miniature tugboat, exclaimed Ranagerd, who was a female, in case you felt that name held any masculine connotations. Yes, Francine, who was also female, but then you knew that, cheered, delighted at her friend's expression. Bobby found it in the basement when we moved in. He spent all winter cleaning it up. Can we go for a ride in it? Ranagerd begged. Sure, Francine agreed. There's just one thing, though. Her own expression changed. The boat is operated by a mechanical brain. Oh, I've heard of those. It's like a computer, isn't it? Ranagerd's enthusiasm was undiminished. Yes, but this machine thinks it's alive. Francine watched her friend's eyes carefully. You don't object? No, why should I? I just wanted to make sure. Some people have strong objections to associating with such things because of their religious convictions. Oh, Francine, Ranagerd tittered. I gave up all that a long time ago. All of it? Francine wondered. Well, I still feel a sacred thrill when I see our flag. But aside from that, I'm completely free of those old superstitions. Good. Because if I had thought for a moment that you didn't still regard our nation and its symbols as holy, I'd... She glanced around at the small pond in which the sentient miniature tugboat floated. I'd knock you off this pier. Francine, you talk like a man. Ranagerd's eyes grew wide. Francine turned away. She looked up at the tops of the ugly pine trees that ringed the pond. I feel like a man. It's something I've never told you before, but it's true. She turned back with a wild look. I feel like a man. But I love you, Bobby. Ranagerd's voice was a whisper. Yes, I guess that makes me gay. Ranagerd promptly shoved her friend into the water with the patiently waiting boat. Stephen's commercial pancreas. The instructor's birthday happened to coincide with Brant Borden's new girlfriend's birthday. Borden bought a jar of peanuts for the instructor, Laird Foxfur, and an apparatus of military application for the girlfriend whose name was Belinda Carlyle by extension. As Borden sat on his sofa tying a ribbon around the neck of the jar of peanuts, he fell to examining the jar. How many peanuts would you say there are in there? He asked of himself. Of course, he didn't really care. He was about to start counting. They were fascinating, though. Each individual peanut was its own little creature, a unique expression of peanutness, whatever that was. He smiled, thinking of these individuals crowded together in their traveling capsule as he affixed the bow. Then he noticed that one of the peanuts was signaling him desperately. "Thank you," said the peanut after he had caught his breath and powered up his voice amplification module. "I didn't think you'd ever notice me." The peanut stood on the coffee table before the sofa. Borden had spilled all the peanuts out onto a plate and freeing the one that had attracted his attention. "Are you a regular peanut?" Borden asked his guest. "No, I'm not a peanut at all." The non-peanut made quotation marks with its fingers on its paperclip wire-thin arms. "My name's Flapjed. I've been sent by the ministry to warn you about a squad of assassins that—" "Wait a minute," Borden interrupted. "They put you into this jar of peanuts?" "Yes," Flapjed nodded. "Now this squad, how did they know I'd buy this particular jar of peanuts?" Borden demanded. "They didn't. They put one of us in every jar currently on sale at the store that you habitually patronize." Flapjed waited to see if there would be any further questions. There were. "How did they know I'd be buying a jar of peanuts?" "Because you always buy peanuts as presents for teachers. Your mother got in the habit when you were a child." "Oh, I see. Oh, Grodin," Borden cried. "Now I don't have a present for Laird Foxfur." He quickly tore the tag bearing Belinda Carlisle by extension's name off the military apparatus and substituted one with Fox for his name. Oblong defense makes stagecraft unnecessary. "Shall I try again?" I asked the young lady with whom I had been partnered by the seating committee. She shrugged her shoulders indifferently. I gather she had not foreseen that I might turn out to be a middle-aged nobody. "All right," I replied with all my teeth showing. I chose another of the crabapple windfalls, one not too mushy, and, aiming carefully, threw it at the cat perched on the roof of the old inn where all of us had gathered. "You missed again," my companion dryly noted. She unfolded her arms and stepped away, heading for the bar, I presumed. I flung one more crabapple at the cat, which, still untouched, climbed over the apex of the roof and disappeared. Foolish girl, I thought. She had better not disappoint tonight. There were several hours to kill until the ceremony began. I was bored stiff. Of course, there was plenty to eat and drink, but I indulged in neither. I had brought a book to read, Die Blechtrommel, but as my German wasn't really ready for that challenge, it stayed in my bag. Not being a social man, I stayed away from the main room of the inn where everyone seemed to be. I walked down to the tiny pond behind the inn. On the other side were the housing facilities for the wiggy pigs, the peasant class in this area. I could imagine them enjoying their family parties on this summer Saturday afternoon. Part of me wanted to join them, but I knew that just setting foot on that side of the pond would endanger my life. Besides, it was necessary that tonight's activities be performed. Giving it up finally, I returned to the inn and took a nap in my room. I was having a dream more intriguing than anything I'd done all week when my partner, the young lady, banged on the door. "They're ready for us," she said simply, her attitude somewhat softened by either our imminent appearance or a couple of drinks. I don't know, maybe both. As we descended the stairs to the main room, we were greeted with thin applause. "Applause applesauce," I said coolly as we ascended the makeshift stage. "What?" the young lady asked. I shook my head and seated myself in the high-backed chair. With a professionalism and sense of showmanship that frankly astonished me, my partner placed the metal cap on my head. Large wood-grain sticker. Imperfectly formed circles thrown about the page in neither apparent order nor an attempt at homogeneity completed the document. The girl who had modeled for the image on the bread bag studied the circles and the text carefully. As she performed this necessary chore, Danny leaned toward Jerry and asked, "Do you say loaf bread?" "Yeah," Jerry admitted. Danny nodded. "Me too." "Why?" "Well, I said loaf bread to Karen, and she gave me a look like I had said something uncouth." "It probably is uncouth to her," Jerry whispered. "You know she went to a finishing school." "Is that so?" Danny glanced at the model's bustle-covered fanny. Karen, satisfied that all was as it should be, hefted the ceremonial pen like a farmer judging the weight of a bag of boiled peanuts. With a little sigh, she signed her name to the bottom of the document and turned to Danny. "Your turn," she said. Her voice was that of an animated baby goat. Literally, in some countries, for a team of impersonators provided celebrity voices, Karen's among them, for the characters on Farmyard Friendlies, a popular show overseas. "Do it," Jerry mouthed the words as Danny stepped forward. The latter man extended his hand as if to take the fancy pen, but just before he grasped it, he knocked Karen's arm aside with a blow to her wrist. He then stabbed her abdomen with a retractable ice pick. Some obscure toxin coating the pick began to work on the almost obscenely infantile woman immediately. She dropped to the floor, one leg kicking convulsively. "Get the paper," Jerry instructed Danny while he went to retrieve the pen which he had seen fly across the room. He hunted on all fours over the dark shag carpeting beneath the equally dark paneling for nearly a minute without success. "You find it?" asked Danny as he stood over Jerry. "No, and I saw it land right here." Jerry was puzzled. "Mr. Weingirl needs that pen as much as he needs this paper," Danny reminded his comrade. Kiss opens for love. "I hear the bell." Connings cupped a hand around his ear to emphasize his words. "Thank you, Connings," drawled Mr. Gumphrey. "I hear it too. Go on, Miss Cattermurley," he directed the young Nordic woman sitting up before him. "Start from the top." Miss Cattermurley, not only blonde all over, even to the eyelashes, but so blonde as to be almost white-headed, sat up straighter in her chair and held up the imaginary product. "Introducing," she said in a voice more mature than one would have expected of so young-looking a woman, "new Fastnex gum paste. Not only are they the gum paste most asked for by our Navy's ship's captains, but they come in a series of 12 graduated textures." She was interrupted by the bell sounding again. "Oh, go see who it is, Connings," Mr. Gumphrey ordered. "Yes, Mr. Gumphrey." Connings smiled at the young woman as he said this, stressing the words, Mr. Gumphrey. "About time you answered the door," Inspector Mills growled as Connings opened the door. "I'm sorry," Inspector Connings began. "Mr. Gumphrey is not at home." He quickly added as the inspector put his foot forward onto the jamb. This checked Mills only for a second. He brought his other foot up to meet the first. "Then how come his car's outside?" "Mr. Gumphrey owns more than one car," Connings countered. He blocked Mills' passage with his tall frame. "That's a lie, Connings, and you know it." "Mr. Gumphrey is a wealthy man," Connings called out, knowing his voice would carry back to the kitchen where the interview with Miss Cattermurley was presumably still underway. "Then why does he live in a trailer?" Mills' mustache bristled with victory. "He's an eccentric," Connings snapped. "I think you're the eccentric, Connings, a man of your accomplishments pretending to be a butler." "You leave me no choice, Mills." Connings' voice took on a chill and an accent wholly different in origin to his previous one. Chicken's ruler backdrop. Base 8 appealed to Whitcane the sower. As he sat around the earthenware transfer house, he used to sit and ponder how this world of ours might be different if Base 8 were the standard. "Shouldn't the world of the Simpsons be Base 8? Whitcane the sower asked Lovis, a young fellow whom he assumed to be a Simpsons fan. "Shouldn't you be sewing?" Lovis replied, busy refitting a beard to one of the steam presses. "No." Whitcane sounded puzzled. "No, because they only have 4 fingers on each hand." "How many fingers do you have?" Lovis demanded sarcastically. Having finally driven Whitcane away, he returned his concentration to his task, which is where it belonged. The refitting took him longer than he had expected. By the time he finished, Mr. Weingirl had arrived. "Hello, Mr. Weingirl," he called across the floor as he wiped his hands on an old Iron Maiden t-shirt. "Hello, Lovis," the swarthy, thickly made Weingirl replied. He walked closer. "What tour is that from?" he asked, pointing at the t-shirt. Lovis held the shirt up before him. "Fear of the Dark," he read aloud. "I used to like that record," Mr. Weingirl mused wistfully, "but in context, it seems it wasn't that great after all." "You listened to it on record?" Lovis asked. "No, on CD. It's still a record." "You're using the word record as if it only applied to vinyl. Technically, the term you want is LP," Weingirl explained. "I knew you were stupid," Whitcane the sower sneered at Lovis from his makeshift perch up in the rafters. "But somehow, because of your youth, I convinced myself that you possessed a hip education." "Whitcane," Mr. Weingirl addressed the man overhead. "Are you still a sower?" "I will always be Whitcane the sower," was the answer. "Then shouldn't you be outside?" Weingirl made a motion with his arms as if casting seed about. Drop Tear Basic. Praiseworthy vodka had been served to each guest. As the last tiny chilled glass was set before Mr. Gumphrey, T.V. Lauder rose from his comfortably padded yet still foldable chair and began his address with a stammered daring. He sounded like a hip-hop song. Ken Brainwave, discussing the evening letter with his wife, related. Just for that one instant, he sounded like a hip-hop song. "Was Mr. Gumphrey there?" Marla Brainwave asked. "Oh, yes, he was there, looking pleased with himself as usual." Marla could hear her husband's voice rising. He was about to launch into one of his customary rants against one of the more prosperous members of the club. She forestalled him by jumping in with, "Let me tell you what I heard today. I heard that on some old jazz albums you can hear the saxophonist glance at the clock. Is that true?" "I think it's true," Brainwave took the bait. "I think it's because they're anxious for a fix. I've heard it myself on a couple of albums." Sonny Rollins, Coltrane. "Who told you that?" He pulled off his socks and threw them against the wall. "I heard it on the radio." Marla ignored the socks as best she could. "Marla," Ken remonstrated, "we have a perfectly good internet connection now. Are you still listening to the radio? That's caveman practice." "We still drive a walking machine," his wife pointed out. "That's been superseded long ago. What's the difference?" "The difference is that the walking machine is an antique." Realizing how that word opened himself up, Brainwave quickly added, "A collector's item. It's vintage. A radio is like undergoing trephination for a headache." "I like the immediacy of radio," Marley insisted. The phone rang. "There's your immediacy," Brainwave grumbled. He lifted the receiver and greeted blindly his caller. "Ken, this is TV Louder." "Good evening," replied Ken meaningfully. "Ken, I've just heard the most shocking news about Marty Gumphrey." Personal automation needed. But triangular-headed automatons put to work making macaroni and cheese with a variety of ingredients drew immediate comparisons to the old Maynard Ferguson band. Of course, there were those who didn't see it, but as Alan pointed out, most of them hadn't even been born before Ferguson met his tragic end. "All they care about is this electric dance pablum," he grumbled as he stuffed another limited edition basketball into the silk bag. "Well," objected Lee, "they care about their relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ." "I mean musically, Lee," Alan snapped. "Jesus, you're dense." "Boys, can we exchange ideas amicably, please?" Watkin Millwheel remonstrated with them both. He looked each man in the eye and turned back to his own work, stuffing limited edition miniature footballs into a silk bag. Occasionally he would glance up at the telenet screen, but mostly he kept his eyes on his work. Nearly everyone else watched the screen closely, whether they remembered Maynard Ferguson or not. "Doesn't their efficiency suffer?" asked Lone Bravo, a manager from the regional office visiting this facility, as he and the Baroness spied on the work floor from an observation post. "Yes," the Baroness answered frankly, "but without the telenet screen we have so many problems that it's just easier to let them watch it." "What kind of problems?" Bravo shifted his sweaty scrotum about and wondered. "Excessive socializing, mainly." The Baroness, an attractive woman, despite her rumored age of 90, wore a long purple dress with tall green shoulder attachments that rose to points higher than the tops of her ears. But more than that, the men are prone to boredom and anxiety. This leads to negative feelings towards the job that we feel cause them to denigrate not only their own jobs, but the company as a whole when they are allowed to mingle with the unemployed sector of the populace. "You shouldn't allow them to mingle with the unemployed sector," Bravo advised. "It's in their contract, Mr. Bravo." "Please call me Lone, Baroness." Bravo winced as his scrotum needed another adjustment. Turtleneck after hours. "Too much cinnamon," Habner judged. He examined the honey bun closely as he chewed. "If you knew how those things are made," Wilson pointed a quivering finger at the pastry in Habner's hand, "you'd never touch another one in your life." "That's what they said about sausage," Habner smirked. "Who did?" Habner considered. "People," he said. "Certain people." "They said it to you?" Wilson inquired. "I'm trying to think." Again, Habner considered. "Well," he decided, "even if the conditional statement wasn't made to me directly, it was definitely one of those things meant to make one reconsider sausage as a what would you say, regular entree?" He folded the honey bun wrapper carefully so as not to get his finger sticky and dropped it into the trash receptacle. "I see." Wilson looked at the floor, wondering how best to continue. "Look, you two," Watkin Millwheel flushed the urinal and turned around. "Why don't you take a tour of the Mrs. Killingworth bakery? It's not too far from here. That would settle the question once and for all." Habner noted the pea stain on the front of Millwhill's trousers and hoped that no one else had seen his eyes directed at that region. "Together?" Wilson asked, somewhat confused. "Sure." Millwheel shrugged his shoulders. "Hell, I don't know. Do what you like." He exited the capacious restroom and returned to his table just before the stage. "You took a while," Dr. Doofus told Millwheel as the latter sat down. "Yeah," Millwheel acknowledged. He broke a breadstick in half and nibbled nervously, ill at ease with the comedian performing in front of him. Don't you hate these guys who think they're so intelligent because they read books? They look down on us normal people who get our entertainment information the easy, modern way through the telenet. But it's they who are living like troglodytes. So went the comedian's patter. You don't look so well, Doofus said to Millwheel. He peed in his pants, Barbara explained.